Hi, I'm Rand Lindsley, co-creator of Trail Designs and the Caldera Cone cooking system. The world's most stable, efficient, and wind-resistant ultralight backpacking stove. This is the system you get as it comes. It comes in a shrink wrap packaging. I'll take off now. And shrink wrapped underneath the first layer is the instruction set for your Caldera Cone. And inside the food grade caddy, it screws apart. First thing you find is your 1210 alcohol stove, your fuel bottle kit including measuring cup, reducer, lid with O-ring seal, and a 5.5 ounce fuel bottle, and instructions on how to use all that. And the last thing in your caddy will be your Caldera Cone. This is held together with a rubber band. Take that off. Several warning stickers here. Make sure you don't hurt yourself. And it will try to spring open on you like that. Just be aware of that. In order to get started using your Caldera Cone, first thing you want to do is assemble your Caldera Cone dovetail joints. To assemble your Caldera Cone, you'll notice there are two dovetail joints on either end of the cone. This dovetail joint here is slightly smaller than this one. This dovetail joint is identified by an angle cut on the bottom. If you notice, the other dovetail joint is flat. Also, the larger dovetail joint will have a rivet through it that's holding on a titanium reinforcement. The other advantage to having this angle cut identifying the smaller of the two dovetail joints is that it allows you to stab it into the larger joint. So once you stab it in there, you can rotate it in place and then slide your cone together. It's critically important that you keep your dovetail protected at all times. If this, as you notice, it's a sliding joint. So if you ever ding this up, get it bent or whatever in the field, you're going to have a lot of trouble having that slide back and forth. If you ever do find yourself with it getting grimy or gunky, you can always get a graphite lubricant and lubricate the joint, and that'll free it right back up. After you slide your dovetail joints together, next thing you want to do is put your pot inside the cone to where it comes all the way up to and rests on its upper lip. You'll notice that there's a cutout in the cone for the handle to slide into so that we can totally protect the entire pot with the cone. This not only acts as a windscreen, but it also acts as a funnel to funnel all of the heat from your stove up to not just the bottom of your pot, but to all sides of your pot. Now that we have our cone set up with our pot with water in it in the cone, next thing you want to do is fire up the alcohol stove. Use your fuel bottle, put in about at least a 1/2 ounce of fuel, 1 tablespoon, but depending upon altitude, you may want to put more fuel in if you're in a colder climate or you have really cold water. Or if you're going up in altitude, you may want to put less fuel in there because the boiling point of water is a little lower at a higher altitude. Like I say, start with a 1/2 ounce and go up from there. I use a longer lighter to keep my fingers out of the flame when I fire it up. And once you light it, the easy way to tell if it's lit is to put your hand about 1 foot or 2 above it and bring it down slowly until you can feel if it's going or not. And it looks like it's kind of going, but not quite. There you go. After your stove is going, you're going to want to take your pot, put it over the center of the stove. Make sure the stove is in the center. If it comes off to one side or the other, the heat will just come up the side of the cone and vent straight out, and you won't be hitting the top of your pot. After about 7 or 8 minutes, you'll notice that your water will be boiling. You can then, well, let me make one other note. I tend to use my hiking gloves to handle my pot and cone because they're typically very hot. But like I say, you can usually wait about 7 or 8 minutes. It'll be boiling. Then you can pick it up and pour it into your freezer bag meal. And also the other thing you'll notice is that as I picked it up, the cone came with it. This isn't a bad thing. This actually makes it easier to sit back down. Makes it easier to pour into your freezer bag meal. And then you can sit it right back down without having to worry about if it knocking over anything, which is yet another really cool thing about the Caldera Cone. This is the most stable system on the planet. You cannot knock this over. That is really cool. In addition to using your freezer bag cooking, you can also use the caddy for a bowl for your freezer bag and maybe a drink. So you can actually make tea and pour into the caddy to use that as a bowl. Fold this down and eat straight from there. So in addition to pouring straight into the bag or into the caddy to eat, what I typically like to do is let it get to a boil, then put in my food directly into the pot. This has the advantage of being able to boil off any excess water and get it cooking down to a consistency that you actually like. The other advantage of cooking and eating directly out of the pot is you don't have to dirty up another dish. There it is, just about done and ready to go. So, as I discussed earlier, it's okay if you pick up the pot and are able to pour with the cone on it, set it right back down. As I also noted, I like to use my hiking gloves, but you can pull it off and use it normally. As your Caldera Cone starts to go through a few heat cycles, it will loosen up and it will pull out normally as you go on. So, to pack everything up, after you're finished with your meal, you've cleaned up your pot and everything, here's how you put it all back together. First, take your pot out of your cone, and then as noted before, just do the reverse with your dovetail, slide it off, and roll your cone up into a tube. You'll notice that the cone actually kind of remains conical in shape with a small end on one end and a larger end on the other. Take that small end and put it down inside the bottom of your caddy. Often that small end will remain too small, and what will happen is the dovetail joints will come to a point. And if it does that, and if you decide you want to stick your fuel bottle inside, we don't recommend sticking your fuel bottle inside because you're putting denatured alcohol in something you might be actually eating from. If your dovetail joints are coming to a point like that, and you put it in there, what happens when you stick your fuel bottle in is it can crush the dovetail joints. So what you want to do when you put your cone in is actually make sure it expands out so that it's large enough on the bottom if you want to use your alcohol bottle inside the caddy. In any event, we do recommend that you put your alcohol bottle in a Ziploc bag so in case it does leak, it'll stay in the bag. And there's a good chance it might leak because the air inside the bottle will expand and contract as you go up and down in altitude. And when it does that, it can force the alcohol out past the O-ring seal and the lid. So if you decide to do that, again, I don't recommend it. Fuel bottle in then, 1210 stove on top. Make sure your cone is tight enough to get the top part of the caddy on. Put the top part of the caddy on, screw it down, and you're ready to go. That's it. Thanks for dialing in to traildesigns.com's product videos. Take a look around the rest of our website at traildesigns.com and find a whole bunch of other cool backpacking ultralight gear to help you out on the trail. Talk to you later.